Good morning everyone. This is class 12th, subject chemistry, chapter number 2, solutions, revision lecture number 1. In this lecture, I will be covering up to ideal and non-ideal solutions, that is from page number 32 to 45 of NCERT book. And after that, one assignment is given. You have to solve the questions which are given in the assignment. In normal life, we rarely come across pure substances. Most of these are mixtures containing two or more pure substances, and their utility or importance in life depends upon their composition. So in this unit, we will consider mostly liquid solutions and their formation. So first of all, what is solution? Solution is a homogeneous mixture of two or more chemically non-reacting substances. So here homogeneous word is used. What is the meaning of homogeneous? So homogeneous means the composition and the properties are uniform throughout the mixture. So solution is defined as homogeneous mixture of two or more chemically non-reacting substances. And every solution is made up of a solvent and solutes. That is, solution is solute plus solvent. And in this unit we shall consider only binary solutions, that is consisting of two components. Now here three types of solutions are there: gaseous solution, liquid solutions, solid solutions. In case of gaseous solutions, the solvent is gas and solute can be solid, liquid or gas. In liquid solutions, the solvent is liquid and the solute can be solid, liquid or a gas. And similarly, in solid solutions, the solvent is solid and the solute can be solid, liquid or gas. So here some examples are given for these three types of solution. First is gaseous solution. So here the solvent is gas and the solute can be gas, liquid or solid. So here the examples of these are given. Next is liquid solutions. So in liquid solutions, the solvent is liquid and the solute can be solid, liquid or gas. And third is solid solutions. In these solid solutions, the solvent is solid and the solute can be gas, liquid or solid. So these are some examples given for these types of solutions. Next topic is expressing concentrations of solution. Now composition of a solution can be described by expressing its concentration. So there are several ways by which we can describe the concentration of the solutions quantitatively. First is mass percentage, that is in terms of weight by weight. So mass percentage of a component of a solution is given by mass percentage of a component, that will be equal to mass of component in the solution upon total mass of solution into 100. So that will give the mass percentage of that component. Second is volume percentage, that is V by V. So similarly, we can calculate the volume percentage of a component, that will be equal to volume of the component upon total volume of solution into 100. Third is parts per million. So when a solute is present in trace quantities, so at that time we can use parts per million, that will be equal to number of parts of the component upon total number of parts of all components of solution into 10 to the power 6. So in parts per million, 10 to the power 6 is multiplied by number of parts of the component upon total number of parts of all components of solution, if we want to calculate the parts per million. Next concentration term is mole fraction, and this is the symbol by which we can represent mole fraction. Now for example, in a mixture, if we have two components and we want to calculate the mole fraction for those two components, so that will be equal to XA, that is mole fraction for A component, that will be equal to number of moles of A upon total number of moles. Now suppose we are having two components in the mixture A and B, so that will be equal to the mole fraction expression for component A, that will be equal to number of moles of A upon number of moles of A plus number of moles of B, that will be NT, that is number of total moles, that is total number of moles. Now similarly we can calculate the mole fraction for B, that will be equal to number of moles of B upon total number of moles, and the sum of mole fraction of all components in a mixture, that will be equal to 1. So here we are considering that there are two components in the mixture. So the sum, that is XA plus XB, that will be equal to 1. Next concentration term is molarity, which is represented by capital M, that is capital M is the symbol for molarity, and that will be equal to number of moles of solute upon volume of solution in liters. Or you can see that molarity is defined as number of moles of solute dissolved in 1 liter of solution. That is molarity. And the next term is molality, which is represented by small m, and the formula is number of moles of solute upon weight of solvent. So the formula for molality is number of moles of solute upon weight of solvent, or you can say that molality is defined as the number of moles of solute per kilogram of the solvent and is expressed in terms of mole per kg. So these are the two formulas for molarity and molality. One important thing in molarity and molality is molarity depends upon temperature, whereas molality is independent of temperature. Now in case of molarity, volume is there, and volume, it is a function of temperature. That is why molarity depends upon temperature, whereas in case of molality, this is M, that is equal to number of moles of solute upon weight of solvent. And this is not the function of temperature. Therefore, molality is independent of temperature, whereas molarity depends upon temperature. Now next we will discuss solubility. So first of all, we will define what is solubility. So solubility of a substance is its maximum amount that can be dissolved in a specified amount of solvent at a specified temperature. That is known as solubility. And solubility depends upon the nature of solute and solvent as well as on temperature and pressure. So solubility is the maximum amount of solute that can be dissolved in a specific amount of solvent at a particular temperature. That is solubility. And the solubility depends on nature of solute as well as on solvent and also on temperature and pressure. So first we will discuss the solubility of a solid in liquid and the effect of temperature and pressure on the solubility of solid in liquid. So first we will discuss these four terms, and after that we will do the effect of temperature and pressure on the solubility of solid in liquid. So when a solid is dissolved in a liquid, some solute dissolves and its concentration increases in the solution. This process is known as dissolution. So dissolution simply means mixing of solid in liquid and its concentration increases in the solution. Now next term is what is crystallization. So when we add solute in a solvent, that is solid solute in a solvent, some solute particles in solution collide with the solid solute particles and get separated out of the solution. This process is known as crystallization. And a stage is reached when the two processes occur at the same rate. Under such conditions, number of solute particles going into the solution, that will be equal to the solute particles separating out, and the state of dynamic equilibrium is reached, that is solute plus solvent is in equilibrium with solution. Now at this stage, the concentration of solute in solution will remain constant under the given conditions of temperature and pressure. So such a solution in which no more solute can be dissolved at the temperature and the pressure is called saturated solution. So saturated solutions are those solutions in which no more solute can be dissolved at the same temperature and pressure. And the unsaturated solution is one in which more solute can be dissolved at the same temperature and pressure. So the solution which is in dynamic equilibrium with undissolved solute is the saturated solution and contains the maximum amount of solute dissolved in a given amount of solvent, and that is known as the solubility of solid in that particular liquid. Now next is, what is the effect of temperature on the solubility of solid in liquid? Now first case is, if in a nearly saturated solution, if the dissolution process is endothermic, that is delta H of solution is greater than 0, then the solubility should increase with rise in temperature, because according to Le-Chatelier principle, if a reaction is endothermic in forward direction, then on increasing the temperature, that will also favor the endothermic reactions. So if the delta H solution is greater than 0, that is if the dissolution process is endothermic, then on increasing the temperature the solubility will increase. Second case is, if it is exothermic, that is delta H solution is less than 0, then in that case the solubility should decrease. Second is effect of pressure on the solubility of solid in liquid. So pressure does not have any significant effect on the solubility of solid in liquid. Now next is solubility of a gas in liquid. So next is solubility of gas in liquid. So solubility of gases in liquid is greatly affected by pressure and temperature, and the solubility of gases increase with increase of pressure. So here is one system. This lower part represents the solution and this upper part is gaseous phase at pressure P and temperature T. Now here a equilibrium is attained, that is under these conditions of pressure and temperature the rate of gaseous particles entering and leaving the solution phase is seen. Now in the second system pressure is increased. So when we increase the pressure, what will happen to the gaseous phase and to solution? So when we increase the pressure on the system, so this gas will compress to a smaller volume, and this will increase the number of gaseous particles per unit volume over the solution, and also the rate at which gaseous particles are striking the surface of solution to enter it increases, and the solubility of gas will increase until a new equilibrium is reached, resulting in an increase in the pressure of gas above the solution, and therefore its solubility increase. That is, when we increase the pressure, the solubility of gas in liquid increases. So Henry was the first to give the quantitative relation between the pressure and the solubility of a gas in a solvent, which is known as Henry's law. According to Henry's law, at constant temperature, the solubility of a gas in liquid is directly proportional to the pressure of the gas. And if we use the mole fraction of a gas in the solution as a measure of its solubility, then it can be said that mole fraction of a gas in the solution is proportional to the partial pressure of the gas over the solution. And the most common form of Henry's law states that the partial pressure of the gas in vapor phase is proportional to the mole fraction of the gas in the solution. That is, partial pressure of the gas in vapor phase is directly proportional to the mole fraction of gas in solution. So when we remove this proportionality constant, a constant is introduced, that is KH, which is known as Henry's constant. And this will explain the solubility of a gas in a particular liquid. That is, higher the value of KH, lower will be the solubility of gas in a particular liquid. Now next topic is vapor pressure of liquid solutions. In liquid solutions, the solvent is liquid and the solute can be a gas, liquid or a solid. Now in this vapor pressure of liquid solution, we will discuss liquid in liquid and solids in liquid. That is, we will discuss two cases. First is when the solute and the solvent is liquid, and the second case is when the solute is solid and the solvent is liquid. Now here in these solutions, they may contain one or more volatile components. That is, the liquid solvent is generally volatile. Now first is vapor pressure of liquid-liquid solution. So here solute is liquid and solvent is also liquid. So here we are considering a binary solution in which two volatile components are there, and these two components are denoted by 1 and 2. So here component 1 and 2 are taken in a closed vessel. Both the components would evaporate and eventually an equilibrium would be established between vapor phase and the liquid phase. So here is the solution in which component 1 and 2 are taken and this is the vapor phase. Now when we put the solution in a closed vessel, an equilibrium will establish between this liquid phase and this vapor phase. Now here P1, it denotes partial vapor pressure of component 1 and P2 is partial vapor pressure of component 2 and Pt is the total vapor pressure. So for these liquid-liquid solutions, the French chemist Raoult gave quantitative relationship between them, that is known as Raoult's law, and this law is applicable for volatile liquids. That is, for a solution of volatile liquids, the partial vapor pressure of each component of the solution is directly proportional to its mole fraction present in the solution. That is, if we want to apply this Raoult's law in component 1, so that will be equal to P1 is the partial vapor pressure for component A, that is directly proportional to the mole fraction present in the solution. Now when we remove this proportionality constant, so here a constant is introduced, that is P1 naught A, that is P1 naught. So here P1 naught is the vapor pressure of pure component 1. So similarly in second component we can apply this Raoult's law for component 2. The Raoult's law will be equal to P2 is directly proportional to x2, and when we remove proportionality constant, so the equation will be P2 is equal to P2 naught into x2. So if we want to calculate the total pressure, then according to Dalton's law of partial vapor pressure, P total, that will be equal to P1 plus P2, because here we are considering a solution in which two components are there. So P total, that will be equal to P1 plus P2. So from Raoult's law, the expression of P1 is x1 into P1 naught and the expression for P2 is x2 into P2 naught. Now as we know that the sum of mole fraction of two components, that will be equal to 1. So here we are replacing x1 by 1 minus x2. So the value of x1 is 1 minus x2, and when we put the value of x1 in this expression, the equation will become P total, that will be equal to P1 naught plus P2 naught minus P1 naught into x2. Now we will see the plot of vapor pressure and mole fraction for liquid-liquid solutions. So this is the equation for P total, that will be equal to P1 naught plus P2 minus P1 naught into x2. Now we will plot a curve between vapor pressure and mole fraction of these two components, that is component 1 and 2. Now in this plot we are assuming that component 1 is less volatile than component 2. It means the vapor pressure for component A or component 1 is more than that of component 2. So here on this axis we have vapor pressure and on this x-axis we have mole fraction. So at this point the mole fraction of component 1 is 1 and the mole fraction of component 2 is 0. Now at this point the mole fraction of component 1 is 0 and the component 2 is 1. That is, when we are moving from this point A to point B, so at A the mole fraction of component 2, that is 0, and at B, that is when we are moving from A to B, the mole fraction of component 2 starts increasing, and at point B the mole fraction of component 2 is 1 and the mole fraction of component 1 will become 0. So at this point x2 is 0, it means that the vapor pressure is just because of this component 1. So here we are assuming that component 1 is less volatile than component 2. It means that the pure vapor pressure of component 2 is more than that of component 1. So at this A point we have mole fraction for component 1. So the vapor pressure is represented by P1 naught, that is pure vapor pressure for component 1. Now at B point or at this axis the vapor pressure is because of component 2, and here the value of component 1 is 0. So P2 is the pure vapor pressure for component 2. Now here we are assuming that the first component is less volatile than component 2. So this is the line joining which defines the P total, that will be equal to P1 plus P2. P1 is partial vapor pressure for component 1 and P2 is the partial vapor pressure for component 2. And these are the values of P1 and P2 corresponding to the mole fraction for component 1 and 2. We can also draw the curve by assuming that component 2 is less volatile than component 1. In that case, the graph will be different. That is, the graph will look like this in case when component 1 is more volatile than component 2. Second thing is, if you want to calculate the mole fraction in vapor phase, then that will be equal to P1 equals to Y1 into P total. This Y1 is mole fraction in vapor phase and this P1 is partial vapor pressure. So we can write it as P1, that will be equal to P1 naught into X1 Y1 into P total. So from here we can calculate the mole fraction in vapor phase. So X1 is the mole fraction in solution and Y1 is the mole fraction in vapor phase. So from here we can calculate the value of mole fraction in solution as well as in vapor phase. Now next is Raoult's law as a special case of Henry's law. So according to Raoult's law, the expression is Pi, that will be equal to Xi into Pi naught. This Pi naught is vapor pressure of pure component and this Pi is partial vapor pressure. Now according to Henry's law, P is equals to Kh into X, where Kh is Henry's constant, X is mole fraction and this P is partial vapor pressure. Now if we compare these two equations of Raoult's law and Henry's law, then it can be seen that the partial pressure of volatile component or gas is directly proportional to its mole fraction. Only the difference is in the proportionality constant, that is in Raoult's law the proportionality constant is Pi naught and in case of Henry's law the proportionality constant is Kh. And the Raoult's law becomes a special case of Henry's law in which this Kh, that is Henry's constant, becomes equals to Pi naught. So this is about liquid-liquid solution, that is in case of liquid-liquid solution and when the liquids are volatile. So for that type of solution, that is for a solution of volatile liquids, we can apply Raoult's law, that will be equal to the partial vapor pressure of each component of the solution is directly proportional to its mole fraction present in the solution. So for volatile components, we can apply Raoult's law. Next is vapor pressure of solutions of solids in liquid. So here in this case the solute is solid and the solvent is liquid. So the examples are sodium chloride, glucose, urea or cane sugar in water. These are the examples of solids in liquids. And some physical properties of these solutions are quite different from those of pure solvents. For example, vapor pressure. So now we will discuss the effect of adding a non-volatile solute on vapor pressure of a pure liquid solvent. So first of all we will define what is vapor pressure. So as we have learnt in class 11 that liquid at a given temperature vaporize and under equilibrium conditions the pressure exerted by the vapors of the liquid over the liquid phase, that is known as vapor pressure. Now we will discuss what will be the effect of adding a non-volatile solute on the vapor pressure of a liquid solvent. Now in this figure A, that is in a pure liquid, the entire surface is occupied by the molecules of liquid. And in second diagram, now here we are adding non-volatile solute to this pure solvent. So when we add non-volatile solute to this solvent, so the vapor pressure of this solution at a given temperature is found to be lower than the vapor pressure of the pure solvent at the same temperature. Now what is the reason behind this? So here in pure solvent, all the surface is occupied by the molecules of solvent. Whereas in second case, when we add non-volatile solute to this pure solvent, so what will happen? The surface has both solute and solvent molecules, thereby the fraction of surface covered by solvent molecules gets reduced. And therefore, the number of solvent molecules escaping from the surface is correspondingly reduced, and therefore the vapor pressure is also reduced. So when we add non-volatile solute to a pure solvent, so the surface, that is the fraction of the surface covered by the solvent molecules get reduced, and therefore the vapor pressure also gets reduced. So when we add non-volatile solute to pure solvent, vapor pressure of solution decreases when a non-volatile solute is added to pure solvent, because fraction of the surface covered by solvent molecules gets reduced. And this decrease of vapor pressure of solvent depends upon the quantity of non-volatile solute present in the solution. Now if we have a pure solvent and when we add non-volatile solute to it, so in that case also we can apply Raoult's law, because here the solvent is volatile. So again, Raoult's law is for any solution, the partial vapor pressure of each volatile component in the solution is directly proportional to its mole fraction. Now here the solute is non-volatile solute and the solvent is volatile. So let us denote solvent by number 1 and solute by 2. So as solute is non-volatile, only solvent molecules are present in vapor phase and contribute to vapor pressure. That is, we can apply Raoult's law in case of solvent only. So that will be P1 is directly proportional to X1, and when we remove proportionality constant, a constant is introduced, that is P1 naught, that is vapor pressure of pure solvent, and P1 is vapor pressure of the solvent in solution. Now here the solute is non-volatile and the solvent is volatile. So vapor pressure of the solution, that will be equal to vapor pressure of the solvent in solution. That is PS equals to P1. So from here the expression is PS, that is vapor pressure of the solution, that will be equal to P1 naught into X1. So from here the expression for mole fraction for component 1, that is the mole fraction of solvent, that will be equal to PS upon P1 naught. Now here two components are in the solution, so we can write down the expression for mole fraction, that is for component 1, that will be equal to number of moles of component 1 upon total number of moles. So here two components are given, that is component 1 which represents solvent and component 2 which represent non-volatile solute. So this is the expression PS upon P1 naught, that will be equal to N1 upon N1 plus N2. Now subtract each side from 1. So when we subtract these two from 1, so the expression will become P1 naught minus PS upon P1 naught, that will be equal to N2 upon N1 plus N2. This is the expression for mole fraction for component 2. So we can write this as P1 naught minus PS upon P1 naught, that will be equal to X2, where P1 naught minus PS is lowering in vapor pressure, and P1 naught minus PS upon P1 naught, that is known as relative lowering in vapor pressure. So here in this expression, P1 naught represents vapor pressure of pure solvent, PS is vapor pressure of solution, X1 is mole fraction of solvent in solution, and X2 is the mole fraction of solute in the solution. So when the solute is non-volatile and the solvent is volatile, so in that case Raoult's law is applicable only for volatile solvent. Next is liquid-liquid solutions can be classified into ideal and non-ideal solution on the basis of Raoult's law. The first is, what are ideal solutions? Those solutions which obey Rolle's law over the entire range of concentration are known as ideal solution. And in case of ideal solution, delta H mixing is 0 and delta V mixing is also 0. For example, if there are two components A and B, so in case of ideal solution, the intermolecular attractive forces between AA and BB are nearly equal to those between A and B. That is, when we mix A and B, the intermolecular attraction between AB that will be equal to the intermolecular attraction between AA and BB. So these are the examples of ideal solution. First is N-hexane and N-heptane. So these are non-polar molecule. So when we mix N-hexane and N-heptane, so the interaction between these two components are same as that of the interaction between N-hexane molecules and N-heptane molecules. Next is non-ideal solutions. So when a solution does not obey Rolle's law over the entire range of concentration, that are known as non-ideal solutions. And in case of non-ideal solution, delta H mixing that will be not equal to 0 and delta V mixing is also not equal to 0. However, in case of non-ideal solution, there are two cases arises. That is, in case of non-ideal solution, the vapor pressure is either higher or lower than the predicted by Rolle's law. So first is, if the vapor pressure of the solution is higher, then solution exhibits positive deviation, and second is, if the vapor pressure of a solution is lower, then solution exhibits negative deviation. So in non-ideal, there are two cases, positive deviation and negative deviation from Rolle's law. In positive deviation from Rolle's law, AB interactions are weaker than those between AA and BB. That is, the intermolecular attractive forces between the solute-solvent molecules are weaker than those between solute-solute and solvent molecules. That is, if the interactions between A and B are weaker, therefore more vapors will be formed, and that is why they will exhibit positive deviation from Rolle's law. Whereas in case of negative deviation, AB interactions are stronger than those between AA and BB. That is why it is difficult to break this bond, and therefore less vapors are formed in case of negative deviation. So in negative deviation, AB interactions are stronger than those between AA and BB. So here are some differences between ideal and non-ideal solution. First is, those solutions which obey Rolle's law over the entire range of concentration, that are ideal solution, and those solutions which do not follow Rolle's law, they are non-ideal solution. In case of ideal solution, delta V mixing is 0 and delta H mixing is 0. Next difference is, in case of ideal solution, the partial vapor pressure for A component that will be equal to XA into P naught A, and for PB it will be equal to XB into PB naught. Whereas in case of non-ideal solution, this PA that will be not equal to XA into PA naught, and PB that is not equal to XB into PB naught. And the example for ideal solution is N-hexane plus N-heptane. So this solution, they will behave as ideal solution, and the example of non-ideal solutions are acetone plus ethyl alcohol. This is the example of non-ideal solution, and HCl and water. So these are the two examples of non-ideal solution, and this is the example of ideal solution. Now here are some differences between positive deviation and negative deviation from Rolle's law. In case of positive deviation, the interaction between the components are less than in the pure components. And in case of negative deviation, the interaction between the components are greater than the pure components. Second is, in case of positive deviation, delta V mixing is positive, and in case of negative deviation, delta V mixing is negative. Third is, if we talk about enthalpy of mixing in positive deviation, so the value is positive in case of positive deviation, and in case of negative deviation, the enthalpy of mixing is negative. And the partial vapor pressure for A that is greater than XA into PA naught, and for PB that is PB is greater than XB into PB naught. Whereas in case of negative deviation, PA is less than XA into PA naught and PB is less than XB into PB naught. So these are the two plots. First is for positive deviation and second is for negative deviation. In case of positive deviation, this is the ideal line. Now in case of positive deviation, this P1 is greater than XA into PA naught. So this line is above this ideal line. Similarly for P2, this line is above this ideal line and the P total is also greater than predicted by Rolle's law. So this is the graph for positive deviation, and in case of negative deviation, the P total that will be lower than predicted by Rolle's law. So in case of negative deviation, these lines they will below this ideal line, and in case of positive deviation, the P total is more than that of ideal line. So these are the two curves. First one is for positive deviation and second one is for negative deviation. So here are some formulas which you will use in numericals. First is for the molarity, the symbol is M. The formula is number of moles of solute upon volume of solution in liter, and number of moles is given by mass upon molar mass. Second is for molality. For molality, the symbol is small m and the formula is number of moles of solute upon mass of solvent in kilogram. Third is for mole fraction. Let's say if there are two components in the mixture and we want to calculate the mole fraction for component A, then that will be equal to mole fraction for A, number of moles of A upon total number of moles. Now second is, in Henry's law there are two formulas. First is PA, that will be equal to KH into XA, where PA is partial upper pressure of gas, KH is Henry's constant and XA is the mole fraction of gas in solution. Also we can use this formula mass, that will be equal to K into P. Here K is constant, P is pressure of the gas in equilibrium with the solvent, and M is the mass of gas dissolved in a unit volume of solvent. Next is Rolle's law. So for volatile components we can apply Rolle's law, and suppose if we are having two components A and B, so partial vapor pressure of A, that will be equal to P naught A into XA, and for PB that will be equal to PB naught into XB. And this is the expression of P total for two volatile components A and B. And if we want to calculate the mole fraction in vapor phase, so it is given by YA, that is PA upon P total, and for YB mole fraction of B in vapor phase, that will be equal to PB upon P total. Second case is when we add non-volatile solute to a pure solvent, then vapor pressure will decrease, and that is given by P naught minus PS upon P naught, that will be equal to X2, where X2 is the mole fraction of solute. So here P naught minus PS, that is lowering in vapor pressure, and P naught minus PS upon P naught, that is relative lowering in vapor pressure. So here P naught is vapor pressure of pure solvent, PS is vapor pressure of solution, and X2 is the mole fraction of solute. So after doing this, you will solve the questions which are given in assignment, and the questions are given as